Hi, everybody, and welcome to the very first video recording of For F's Sake or For Freedom's Sake. Usually I'm hidden on a telephone and nobody can see what I'm getting up to. But today I have the absolute honor and pleasure of welcoming a very long-awaited guest, Ryan Doherty. And I have been pausing and putting this man off who has been so graciously patient with me until our diaries and I don't know, timelines seem to have collided to bring us together today. And I'm really excited for this conversation. And just before we turned the recording on, Ryan so graciously gave us just a few moments of, I know, a deeper space to connect in, where I had the real opportunity to feel energetically Ryan and was very moved by the invitation to welcome in the angel of freedom. It was something that really made my heart smile. So please allow me to introduce Ryan Doherty, who is the co-founder and manager of the Starling Collective, a charity which supports people who come to Northern Ireland. And he's also an incredible author of You Are Already Free, and he helps people to remember their true nature. Music to my ears. So, Ryan, it's a real welcome and honor to have you here. How are you?
I'm very good, and I'm delighted to hear that I'm the very first one
All right.
of For F's Sake, and I actually love that name as well. Yeah, for freedom's sake. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you,
Yeah.
Emma. You.
So, Ryan, you're doing incredible work. I'd love to hear more about it. And I wonder maybe you could start us off telling us about, I don't know, I guess your journey to today, which may take us through some winding roads. I don't know. I'm sure it wasn't a straight path, but you know,
Yeah, sure, delighted. I'll take it back to around 2006, and I was a marketing manager and reasonably happy and confident. I was doing well in my job. I had just started dating a girl that I liked for years, and she liked me for years. But I started getting some insecurity about my hair loss. So I went to see a hair loss specialist. And then this specialist advised me to take a tablet. And I asked the specialist, would this have any side effects? And he says, not really, like for a young man like yourself. For some people, it can affect their libido. But like if it did, you'd just stop taking it. And such was the power of thought and my thought that I thought, well, am I going to risk my manhood over this? But the thought was, no woman's going to want to be with you anyway if you do lose your hair. The irony is, I much prefer my hair like this now as well. But so I remember sitting in my room and contemplating that, and it shows you the power of the thought and how thoughts can imprison us. And we'll maybe come on to that later. But so I started taking the tablets, and within 1 week, I discovered that I had completely lost my libido and was temporarily impotent. I didn't know how long I was going to be for. I contacted the hair loss specialist, and then he said to stop taking the tablets. 3, 4 months went past, nothing had changed. He stopped taking my calls, and then about 2 months after that, I got made redundant just before Christmas in 2006. And then I had to move home with my parents, and my life was just falling apart. So I went online and discovered support forums of men who'd taken this drug 10, 15 years ago, and nothing had changed. And so with reading this, my life then was just completely falling apart. I was like, I'm never gonna have sex again, never gonna have a partner, never become a father. And so I just plunged into the depths of depression. And then a family friend recommended a healer and or a book from a healer. So I read the book, and this was a woman who had healed herself from cancer. And now at this point, this was all completely new to me. Energy healing and all this was completely new, and it was way out there. But I was at a point where I was completely desperate, and I was willing to try anything. So then I started having sessions with this healer, and then it was only supposed to be a few, but after a while, I couldn't stop going back to her, and I started like almost in a loop of like negative thoughts and thought patterns, and I couldn't get out of that. And then it started to turn and develop into almost like a big pipe connected to my solar plexus, and it was like sucking my energy out. And I later found out that it was psychic attack that this one was doing on me. But as I was telling my mum, who was a retired nurse and doctors and things like that, they just say, okay, this person's lost his mind, and understandably so, because what was happening doesn't really happen in ordinary life. So then I was having to take medication, and the more I was taking this medication was fighting my ability to hold off this darkness until it came to the point where I felt completely disconnected from the light and disconnected from God. And this went on for a number of years. My mum had to take off work to care for me, and it was just at the point of no return. And he didn't want to live, and he didn't want to die, and I had completely given up all hope. And maybe about 3 years into it, after me going to different healers and different courses and therapies, nothing was changing. And my granny told my father about an interfaith healing ministry in Belfast. So the night before I went along, I opened the Bible, and I wasn't religious, but there was a Bible in my mum's house. So I asked God, please God help me, give me a sign. And I flicked it open, it was Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. But I said, no, it's too late for me. There's no chance, and threw the Bible away. So then the next day I went down, and a reverend and a man prayed over me, anointed my head with oil, and then they said they might pray over it. And then they prayed Psalm 23. I heard, the Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want. And it's just as I heard that, tears just come rolling down my face. And I was like, thank you, God. Thank you. There is hope. And I spoke a little bit to him about why that was significant to me. And he said, you go to Mass at all? And I says, no, I don't. And he says, well, maybe you should try going for just a little period to try and get some solace. And so the next day I went to Mass, and Mass started at 10. I didn't wake up till like 10:19, so it was nearly over. But something inside me just says, no, get up, get up. So I went down, went in, and the ordinary priest was sick that day, so a retired priest was filling in. So I went down and took communion. I was saying a bit of a prayer, and then after, the priest went to the side of the altar and put his arms out and put the head down and says, the Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want. And at this point, I'm just like, wow, like what is happening? And again, tears of release and hope. But at this point, I'm starting to get like, okay, what, like, does he know the divine intervention that's just moved through him? And so after the mass was over, I went into the sacristy, and I didn't say much to him. And he said, it's funny, I actually found it funny at the time as well, because he said, young man, if you actually think you're getting personal messages from God, you need to wise the hell up. And that was like, there was a retired priest who had spent all his life devoted to God, and how disconnected from the truth could he be? And I never really did much time for religion, but that was the final nail in the coffin, if ever even needed one. And as I walked around the the church before I left, I stopped just shortly before a door, and I looked to the right, and about 6 feet to the right there was like a shelf of pamphlets, and I was guided to go over and lift one, and I lifted one, and the one behind it was completely different, and I turned it round, and there was a picture of a still lake, and it says, near restful waters he leads me to revive my drooping spirit. Psalm 23. And I was just like, whoa. And I was like, okay, yes, there is finally hope. I do finally have hope. And because beforehand I didn't have hope. I didn't think there was any way back from the abyss that I was in. And then at that point, then I was able to start making steps and taking actions. And I started really getting into non-duality and like the present moment. And I remember then maybe a number of months later, I was up in Belfast, and I was just going for a drive, and I had a thought of like Neil Ziegler, or Zig Ziglar and Neil Donald Walsh, actually, something of what they were saying about whatever it is you want for yourself, bring it to enough other people first, and then it will return to you. If you want love, be loving to other people. If you want friendship, be a friend to others. If you want money, help other people make money. And so for me, I was like, at this point, I was still didn't have much hope. So then it sort of says, okay, I'll go in and volunteer. I had the insight or the nudge to go in and volunteer to help other people who were feeling homeless. And I spoke to the woman and and said about helping those who are homeless. So I decided to volunteer then for a homeless charity. And as I was doing this and I was helping others, I was giving them hope. And then I actually started to get more hope. And then I started to discover that we're all one and also all help is self-help. And as I was helping them, I was helping myself and I was elevating. And then I was learning different practices. And then I started to change. And as I started to practice these teachings that I was learning, my life started to transform. And also another very pivotal moment was I started to be open to the possibility that I had chose all of this before I even took my first breath. And I remember thinking, I must really hate myself if I go through all this. But at this point, I was years into the psychic attack, depression, the effects of the tablet, and I said, I've nothing to lose. If this continues, I'll be dead. So he says, I'm only going to be open to the possibility at first. And as I was open to the possibility, then my mindset set and my mind started to change. And then books and teachers started to come into my life to confirm that. And they also said, I'm not going to give any attention to the darkness. Or at this point, I was actually almost in a concussion-like daze and trance for over a year and a half. I'm not going to give any attention to it. I'm not going to speak about it. I'm only going to focus on the positive, on the light, and speak about that. And the more I did this, the more my life started to transform. And so then I then was like being amazed by all the things that was happening and how my life was transforming. So again, which is a big part of my journey, was I was asking life, send the tension out to sort of give me hope, give me something to pull me forward to get me to the next level. So in 2009, in December 2009, I opened an email for Michael Neal. It was how to achieve the impossible in 30 days. And I sat with it and I said, what will be impossible will be impossible. And then what came up was writing the book. Because by this time I was still hardly leaving my parents' home. I was massively depressed. Even though I went through university, I had only really read a few books from cover to cover to this point. I failed my English GCSE for first time round. And so then I decided to do that. And I knew I wasn't gonna finish the book by within the 30 days, but by the end of the 30 days, I created enough momentum to actually start the book. And the book was called How to Transform Your Life in 30 Days, because I would have had to learn how to transform my life to be able to then teach it to others. And I'm just conscious I've been speaking for a while, so I'll let you jump in now if you have any comments or questions.
Well, I'm just really actually enjoying the invitation to kind of be alongside you as you journey with your words and give us a real sense of when things really began to begin. And you gave such an eloquent account of an abyss, of a sense of maybe not having hope to be in relationship and what spiraled and how everything kind of began to fall away for you to, come into contact with life and other people the way that you have. And I'm just so moved by your honesty around that. It's so humble to hear you speak so truthfully and, not polished. There's no hiding about what you've been going through and what you've experienced and contended with to get to where you are today. And I love that you chose a topic for your book to be something that you're living and researching in the moment. That you
Mm.
have to um, know it for yourself to be able to teach it.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, how did that go for you? Writing how to transform your life in 30 days.
Yeah, it was both a beautiful and difficult process, but it was also transforming. Had completely transformed my life, and I was putting things into practice, and I was looking for other people to be inspired by because in around that time it was like I told you about the priest and other maybe some spiritual teachers who were speaking about things, but I didn't feel that they had walked through like a metamorphosis or they weren't embodying their teaching. Plus, also a lot of the counselors and psychotherapists that I went to, I felt that they couldn't even hold, whenever I was in the depths of darkness, I felt that they couldn't even go there with me because they hadn't even been there themselves.
Yeah.
And so then I started to set the intention to follow and learn from people who has been to their own hell and abyss and somehow came back from it. And there was like teachers like Neil Donald Walsh, like Baron Katie, like the person who is in the story in my first chapter of my book, W. Mitchell. He was burnt in a crash in a motorcycle crash. He was burnt 80% of his body was completely burnt. And then about 3 years later, he was actually in an airplane crash. And so then he was paralyzed from the waist down. And so that then he wrote a book about it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. And he says that like I actually am a happy man. And this was a person who doesn't have fingers, is completely 80% burnt, can't walk. And he's went on to become a mayor, become a millionaire, become run numerous different businesses, and become an actual keynote speaker. And so I'm like, okay, there's someone who's truly been to hell, and in some cases, for some people, still living it. But yet he's saying he's happy. So I was learning from him and I applying different things that like he was saying, and again, it is very much about the mind, and it's like how we shift our perception to actually, as we do this, then things start to change, and it's known from quantum science like the double slit experiment is like electrons are fired through and they're waves before they're observed, which is waves is infinite possibility, but as it's observed, it collapses into a particle. So as we're observing reality, that's what's being met with. So then I was changing how I was viewing reality and how I was viewing myself. And as this was happening, my life was starting to transform. And so, like by me putting this into action, it was amazing how things were actually completely transforming and other things in terms of really practicing mindfulness and the present moment. And then it was like practicing living each day as if it was my last. And I started to live each day as if this was my last day. Then it doesn't really matter about terms of whether the effects of the Proscar or the tablet that affected my libido ever go away. It doesn't matter if I get out of the depression and darkness. And it also doesn't matter about what this person in front of me thinks of me, whether I'm sure my truth or not. There's no holding back. And I start to share more love with people around me because I don't have the fear of a future. And it's completely now. And it brought me into the present. And the more as I was doing this, then my life started to transform. And also as well, then I started to do random acts, like random acts of kindness, and also giving compliments, a number of like 3 compliments a day. And in terms of the random acts, it was like, then that was me giving love and help. And it's like the more that you do this, it's like you're feeling this on the way out. So it's coming from you. So it's not something that you have to get this love, this kindness. That's actually coming from you. So you experience that. And as more you experience that without attachment, I was experiencing miraculous events that were coming back into my life. And then also the power of words is like almost like the power of the divine flowing through us to others. And I've heard other stories about different people who had been affected by a random act of kindness or a word. I had an aunt who was in a real difficult time, and she said that she was just walking through a shopping mall someday and just she felt so invisible. And just even another woman walking past and met her eye and give her a real heartfelt smile. And like she then that was had such a profound impact on her. And that's it. We never actually know the impact that we have on our lives. And that reminds me of another story in the book that I got from another teacher who it's called I Learned to Love You Today. And so this person was going to work every day and he was parking in a big parking lot. And the parking attendant was always grumpy and he was always doing everything he could to cheer this person up, cheer this person up. And this was going on for ages and he was parking there for ages. And then one day he was getting in the head about this woman. And then he was also having a difficult few months. And so then he then decided to like treat her how she was being treating him, and he was maybe a bit abrupt or a bit rude. And then she turned around and said to him, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And he turned around and goes, "Am I okay? Am I okay? Look how you've been treating me for all this time." And then so then she turned around and says, "Oh, it's just that I depend on you every day to come in and lift my spirits, and I look forward to you coming in to give me that lift and that joy." Because I am a single mother of three and I'm struggling with three jobs. And then my husband left me. And then after that, I found I have cancer. And so that he was just like, whoa, it really took the wind out of him because he was like, we never know what other person is going through and how the words on our lips can actually have such a profound impact. And so that point, he says, from this point forth and for every other people, I'm going to start to treat them with love. And that's what we all seek, and that's what we want. And if this is what we want, then the more we start to do this, the more this starts to reflect back to us.
So I guess what I'm connecting with is freedom to love freely
Hmm.
and to give freely from the heart can change everything.
Yeah.
And like you say, we have no idea how deeply we can impact someone simply with a smile of kindness or just some warmth.
Hmm.
And I hear you giving examples of other people's stories, but you were volunteering and helping people who are homeless and who live the abyss and who know judgment and really such a lack of the most foundations of safety and meeting them with kindness in ways that perhaps they'd never experienced before. So here's you embodying for a very long time the teachings that you read about later on.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because it was sort of happening like side by side, and it's like
Yeah.
as I was doing this, the more I was learning, and it was like it was becoming like and still is to this day that like everything where we are and those in front of us is our greatest teachers. And then I was reading The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, and that wasn't about actually getting rich. It's more about the power of our mind and how we can transform our reality. And one point was like, no matter what you're doing, do it with such devotion and attention and as if it's for God right there. So like in my mind as well, it's like, okay, but how can you start volunteering for a homeless charity? You've spent all this money and years in marketing, and then like why are you not going back to marketing? And that's what the mind does. But then again, another important point was for me asking signs from life. And it's like, okay, if this is my right path, then do this. And it was okay, I might think about starting like a marketing freelance company for a bit. And then I started to do some work for a person. And I was using my former contacts to help design a logo and design a website. And I was doing work for them. And then whenever it came to the point of actually getting money from them, he wouldn't give me the money, and he wouldn't give the money to the website designer or the logo designer. So in that one move, that was like the end of my relationship with the website designer and the logo designer. And also I was like out of sort of like money from the time and effort that I give to him. But again, that was me perfect for me because then I was like, say, rather than going into the story, why did this happen? It's like, okay, this is perfect. That's life showing me the close of the door. And another thing which has kept coming up was like to change the actual thought pattern of why is this happening to me to why have I created this or why have I chose this or what have I got to learn from this? Or even as Mary A. Hall might say, is like, what's right in this moment? And again, it's all about changing our mindset, changing our perspective, because I'm sure everyone will have noticed that if in their own lives, if you start off day in a bad mood or if you bad things happen, maybe you trigger your toe and you're running late, it seems to compound. Or also as well, if you're maybe looking for a car, say for like a green Audi, and beforehand you don't really see them, but as you go out on the roads, it's like all you can see is green Audis. It's fascinating. But it's not like all of a sudden there's more green Audis. It's almost like reticular activating system, and we're like the mind is taking in millions of bits of seconds and second, and so it has to shut out stuff that it doesn't feel that is relevant. So it's like whatever we put in our mind to focus on, that's what's going to come forth. And I've learned that reality is neutral. And you can say life is cruel, meaningless, hopeless, and unkind. And life will say, yes, dear one. And here's proof, and here's how, and here's more. But you can also say life is miraculous, joyful, loving, and free. And life will also say, yes, dear one, here's proof, here's how, and here's more.
It also sounds like freedom to be able to intentionally be relational with the world that we are part of, so
Mm,
we can refine our signal with the universe to frequencies which are life enhancing, that lift our spirits up, that connect us with the joy of being human in this world.
mm,
And for so many people, they live without hope
mhm,
or they're organized by fear.
mm,
Mm. I'm aware of how that in itself is a prison.
mm,
And I love that you are, devoting your time, your life to helping people to set themselves free.
mm.
So, how are you spending your days now?
Yeah, so my day would be managing a charity called Starling Collective that I have co-founded. It's a charity based in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and we support people who've came here to seek asylum and seek refuge from just numerous different places all around the world. And we would provide accommodation to some people who are temporarily outside of the asylum system and financial support and help them get into the system again, maybe link them in with solicitors and also have some holistic trauma-informed well-being support. And then we also have a person-centered advice and holistic program. And alongside both programs, we have a steering group of people with lived experience that help us shape the work. And then we would currently have different programs that was like art therapy, cultural day trips, um, like sort of allotment trips to the cinema, and just sort of ways for people to get together and get outside of the trap or the day-to-day life that they're in. And it's particularly important now, I feel, whenever our freedoms and rights is or sort of sorry, the people who come here to seek a sanctuary, their freedoms and rights is almost being taken away from them, and it's an internationally recognized right. But now it's being relabeled as like illegal immigrants. Whenever that's not the case, they're exercising their international human right to seek sanctuary. And the whole thing about freedom as well is I was about to say coincidence, but it's kind of no coincidence that I work with people who are some of the most bound people on earth through no fault of their own, and I'm under no illusion or fully aware of me as a white Irishman, the freedoms that I have and that so many other people around the world don't have. For example, even the opportunity to have this conversation, there's so many in the world wouldn't be able to have this conversation, and the freedom to be able to travel. I mean, back before I was born, my parents emigrated from Ireland to Canada because of the Troubles, and that was because of the passport that they had. Where there's so many people around the world because they don't have a passport that is strong or they're not in the European Union, they don't have the same ability to flee whenever things go wrong, and people don't want to leave their country unless the country becomes at war. And also, these people like bring so much to our own society, and it's like we're all one family. So it's like we should actually see this person as our brother and sister. And the more we do this, then the more we realize that we truly are one family. And so also very humbling for me and learning to like see the traumas that so many of these people go through, and yet they still have hope. And not every one of them, but so many of them are still able to go through such unbelievable, unbearable trauma, but yet they still find hope. They still find meaning. And then that reminds me as well of Viktor Frankl, who wrote The Man's Search for Meaning. And I remember Wayne Dyer telling the story that he'd heard from Viktor Frankl was whenever they were starving and the soldiers were leading them out into the like the front of the camps, and there was a pond, a wee small puddle even, and they used to throw rotten fish heads in the puddle, and they would make them like eat it and drink it. And he says the only way he could do this was to find beauty in it. And I mean, that's so amazing to be able to turn your mind that way and to actually find beauty in something so horrendous as that. And again, come back to shows you the power of the mind. And he also said that he found beauty and also found meaning. And he said that him and other people who were able to somehow find meaning either in their suffering, but also in the future, was able to give them that hope to get
Yes.
through this unbearable suffering.
Yes. So there's something so inextricably linked with meaning, purpose, hope.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember reading Frankel's book and how he spoke about how he could see just by someone's posture or energy whether they would be able to survive the camps, if they could find the freedom of beauty in a moment where they could find a sense of meaning in their suffering.
Mhm.
Maybe that's something many of us have forgotten how to do.
Yeah.
The work that you're creating and supporting is incredibly powerful. Supporting your brothers and sisters to live a life of freedom and to really experience a sense of welcome and belonging
Mhm.
when they've endured perhaps the toughest things that are beyond our own imagination because of our own privileges and
Yeah.
comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, very moving.
Mhm.
My grandparents, when they were both little, they were forcibly removed from Turkey. Like the family would just they just had to grab what they could and walk from Turkey to Greece to resettle. And you know, although that's not my direct experience of being alive, I still feel that uproot in my own cells. I have that
I'm
very
sure.
clear connection to that, and that wasn't that long ago. And
No.
so many people are enduring so much. And like you say, that it's our human right to
Yeah.
sanctuary, to
Yeah.
freedom.
Yeah.
Mm. So I'm curious what you might say to someone who's maybe at the very beginning of their journey, or where maybe things are beginning to fall apart, or, you know,
Yeah. It's interesting to say about fall apart because it reminds me of a quote from Neil Donald Walsh and getting a bit emotional actually, yeah. Because of its beauty, because of its power. And because the gift that lies in the journey and the suffering that's there for us if we are open to it. And Neil Donald said, in that moment where it feels like our life can go no more wrong and everything seems like it's falling apart and can't get any worse. Maybe, just maybe in that very moment, it's coming together for the very first time.
Mm. Yeah, and breathing that one in. It
Mhm.
reminds me of Simon and Garfunkel, Sound of Silence.
Oh, I love that song.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah. And that's it, is like every one of us, every being, every child is born free, loving, unconditional, almost like mini Buddhas. But then we are programmed that we are this body mind. It's not what we come in with. Up until maybe about 1.5 or two, the child has no center, has no reference point for I, is living in its boundless true nature. And then starts to identify with this, and then it start almost like gravity. It starts to draw its attention inward, and then there's an I here, and it's like almost then if you almost think have the vision of of the planet, and then the planet draws gravity, and from that gravity, that has a weather system, which then creates the life. But it's like if you think of that weather system, this connection with the I, then that's where the thoughts and the feelings come around that, and that's then this infinite self starts to identify and starts to think it's this the body mind, and it's not wrong. It's a perfect setup because our true nature is infinite, boundless, formless freedom, but
The
it wants to
waves.
know itself. What's that?
The waves.
Yeah, yeah. And it
Yes.
wants to know itself then. And by
Mm.
doing it, so it needs contrast, it needs form, it needs limitation.
Yes.
And so then that's the dance that we go through. And for me and for a number of other people that I've studied, it takes a big shock or a big suffering or a big something to actually come in and to challenge our perception, to challenge the programming because it is so intense. And that's the way it's been set up. There's no wrong in it. That's what we've chosen. And so then I wouldn't change everything I went through. I literally wouldn't change it for anything in the world. I would gladly die right now. Whereas if I had been the other timeline of being a marketing manager, continued with that woman, went on to be successful and have grandkids, or to have this point to this life and what everything I've learned about soul and life, I've learned so much more. And it also reminds me then of another person on the journey when I was having a workshop with Baron Katie, and he wasn't actually with Baron Katie, but it was the work, Baron Katie's the work. And the guy was sitting on the floor beside me, and it was in a room of about 15, 20 people, and he was starting to tell the story about him t trying to take his own life and his mother coming, and it was very traumatic, and he was in tears, and other people in there were in tears. And my first instinct was to reach out and comfort him, but then something just hit me. I was just like, no, no. Who am I to take away his pain and suffering? Who am I to take away what he's mining? He's going through this mining for gold, which I went through in mining for gold. And that's not to say you're cold and you don't support people, but like if I had have not went through everything what I went through and people handed me the insights without actually me going through the process, I wouldn't have known. It wouldn't have meant anything. I wouldn't have had the process of alchemy. And so it's like then the people on the journey start to then get into a dialogue with life and ask life, ask for hope, and become present. Start really becoming try practicing mindfulness because again, use an analogy, it's like we walk about almost like everything's cloudy and we can't get insight because of all our thoughts. But the more we practice mindfulness, then it's almost like the clearing of the clouds. And as more the clouds clear, which is like our thoughts, then the more we come into the present moment, then the more our higher self, our guides, our spirits, our angels are able to give insights through. And that's almost like breadcrumbs on the journey home back to ourselves. And is to follow those signs. I'm reminded of Celestine Prophecy. It was a beautiful book on the journey home and following signs and synchronicities. And also go to other workshops with people, follow different paths that people have trod this path that you want to go down. And as the more we do this, the more we practice it, and then our life starts to transform. And like we can get wisdom from anything. Whenever on my journey I was having problems with my bladder and I went to a GP and a hospital and things and nothing was changing. But then because I was also studying quantum physics and realizing that everything is energy and everything is consciousness, so then it got to the point was like, okay, enough's enough. And I did a meditation of almost just imagining my consciousness being like a white feather and I dropped it down into the bladder. And I said, okay, you have the floor. And so I started asking the bladder what the problem was and what it was here for. And what came out blew my mind. Whereas the insight, and it was even calling me out, it was humorous. And then it was like, if I had went and paid someone £100 or whatever to give me like an insight, a medium or something like that, I would have said, oh my God, this person's amazing. And then, so I was so blown away by this, then I started a 30-day experiment of connecting with my body, connecting with the wisdom of the body and getting answers that then ended up being a year and a half process, which I still do to this day. So there is wisdom and answers wherever you search for them, but it's also then flipping to not why did this happen to me, to okay, why did I choose to go through this? What have I got to learn from this? And it's also then, I can't remember where it's Einstein said it, but it's like the most important question or view you can have is life a hostile place or a friendly place? And it's viewing that like everything is happening for me, not to me, everything is happening for me. And if this is happening for me, then what have I got to learn from this? And it's then what this did for me was really help me move from the point of being victim and hopeless to actually, okay, now I have power. Now I can actually start to take decisions, actions, and steps to take my power back and to transform my life.
To bring this in, I mean, I love that you're having those conversations with the wisdom of the body. I love
Mhm.
the fact that your bladder was taking the piss out of
Exactly, it was. I know.
you. I wonder if this might be an organic time for you to maybe offer our journey people who are listening in this moment in the future to maybe do something that where they can experience some mindfulness with you. How does that feel?
Sure, perfect. Yeah. How
Great.
many minutes do you want it to be for, roughly?
Well, it's really up to you. Maybe like, what's up to you, 5, 10, whatever feels right for you.
Super.
I'll I will go on mute just to give you that
Mhm.
freedom and just give me the nod. Or I'll be going through it as well, so I'll have a sense of when it's coming to an end.
Perfect. Okay, then. So just invite everyone to gently close their eyes and relax into whatever chair or bed they're lying on, and just allow yourself to let go. We spend so much of our days doing, moving, thinking. But in this moment, give yourself the gift of becoming unraveled. Just let go and get a sense or even a visual of a man stand or woman standing with lots of different plates spinning on poles, and just allow yourself to see that person stepping back and letting all of them just fall. Just letting everything go. In this moment of now, you don't have to keep anything up. You don't have to be anywhere, anything, or anyone. All of your challenges in your life will still be there. Just give yourself this moment of freedom now. And also get a sense or imagine you traveling along a flat road in a car and just simply take your foot off the accelerator and sense the body of the car just slowly slowing down, slowly slowing down. And you just put your foot on the clutch and hand on the gear stick and you just put it into neutral. And as any thoughts arise, just imagine that you're just grabbing the thought as a gear stick and just pushing it into neutral. Floating, gently coming to a stop. Ah. And if there's any sighs want to come out, let them. Just allow yourself to let go, dear one. Allow yourself to rest here in this moment. Allow yourself just for now to let go of any concept of a past or expectation or longing of a future. Simply allow yourself to be here now. And if any feeling or sensation is arising that is calling for your attention, be it positive or what we may label as negative, invite you now to welcome that sensation. As best you can in this moment, breathe into and open to this sensation. As best you can in this moment, allow it to be here unconditionally. Letting go of any story or judgment or resistance or even holding on to it. If it's sadness or grief or even joy or love, just drop the label and just bring your attention to the sensation. No past, no story. Just bring your presence to whatever sensation is calling your attention. Breathing into it, and as the mind wanders, gently bringing it back to the sensation. Just energy arising in this moment. Welcome what is here. No past, no judgment, no agenda. Allow this energy to have its life. Simply allow it the opportunity to be felt. No right, no wrong, just this. Anytime the mind wanders, gently bring your attention back to the sensation. Invite you now to ask this sensation what it is here for, and if it has any message for you. And trust that whatever arises is perfect. If you're not hearing anything, also know that that is perfect. And trust that you will get an answer or insight maybe later in a moment of peace or clarity or mindfulness. Bringing attention back to the sensation and opening your heart and breathing into it even more. Invite you now to ask the sensation if it needs anything from you in this moment. And before we move on, you can ask it if it is any final advice, words of wisdom, or encouragement for you. I invite you to thank it now, and I invite you to bring your attention to space. Begin to notice the space between my words, between any sounds arising in the room. Get a sense of the space in the room. A sense of your body resting in this space. Notice the space between any thoughts that may be arising. Notice the space in which the thoughts are being held in and disappearing back into. Notice the space surrounding any feelings or sensations arising in the body. Also notice the space within the sensation or feeling arising. Our body is made up of cells, molecules, and atoms. And our atoms are 99.99999% empty space. Get a sense or intend to open to this space now. Allow yourself to be held in this space. Gently rest in this for a few moments. Bringing your attention back to your fingers and toes. Start wriggling your fingers and toes. Maybe taking a stretch and a deep breath. Bring your attention back into the room. And allowing this noise to ground you deeper into your body in this moment. Taking a deep breath, and whenever you're ready, you can come back to the room.
Hmm, thank you. Could have hung out there a lot longer and I would do.
No.
Which is rare for me. I'm someone who finds stillness and movement. So thank you for that gift of spaciousness.
My pleasure.
No doubt many people will benefit from that. And I'm aware that we're coming up to the hour already.
Mm.
Sort of explored so much.
Mm.
I guess before we kind of let the energy ebb away and wrap up, how might people get hold of your book or be able to work with you if that's even an option?
Sure, yeah. My book is called You're Already Free, and it's available on Amazon. And you can find me on ryandoherty.org or on Instagram at You Are Already Free, and you can contact me through either one of those to have a session. And later in the year, I will also be having a 6-week program that I'm going to do it donation based as well. So
Um,
people can join that. I'll be limited this. I'm not sure whether it's going to be 8 or 10 spaces so far. So, but yeah, you can reach out and find out when that's on, or reach out for a session.
Incredible. So that there are ways to work with this dear man to experience more of your wisdom and clearly, as a someone who has been an initiate of the abyss, who has gone into the depths and returned, gone back into the depths and returned. What an incredible guide you would be for anyone.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Appreciate
Oh,
it.
it's been a real gift. I'm feeling the shift within me just from spending this moment in time and space with you. I really appreciate that. So I
Mm.
encourage whoever might be interested to really reach out to Ryan and to get his book and to experience this for yourself. Anyway, Ryan, any last words of wisdom around freedom or hope for us before we sign off?
Sure, yeah, I'm being guided to the quote on the back of the book, and just as I was, I happened to look up and see a feather outside. I don't know what is the bigger crime, to lock up a beautiful bird of paradise, or to convince the bird that the cage even exists. So freedom is our very nature. It is who we are. And as I mentioned earlier on, every child, every being is born with that. And it's not something that we need to get. It's not something that is achieved in the future. It's more of an undoing and a letting go of what we think we are and the striving to become. So there's an invitation to reorientate ourselves back to the present moment, to let go of whatever is arising. And as we just did, to notice the space. And if I had more time, I would have noticed the silence. Because the analogy is that that infinite sky, that space, is our true nature, and all planets and forms are arising. And that space is never affected or have any attachment to what's happening on Earth. It doesn't have attachment to whether it's stormy or whether it's windy and raining or it's sunlight. And there could be war or famine on Earth for 1,000 years, or even Earth and all the thousands and all the planets could be destroyed. But still, space will remain untouched. And even within the planet and within our bodies, everything is 99.9999% empty space. So it's coming back to knowing that no matter what happens, it can never touch the truth of who we are, which is boundless freedom. That is to be found only and always in this moment, right here and now, beyond any concept of time or mind.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, Caroline. I'm honored.
Oh, okay. Anyway, much love, dear ones. Thank you for joining us when the time is right for you. And thank you, Ryan. I look forward to future conversations with you. I feel there's so much
Yeah,
more.
definitely.
Anyway,
I'll be
okay.
delighted. Thanks very much. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.